Hello, dear friends. Nothing can be beyond good and evil as long as suffering and injustice exist. Opinion piece. Closer good and evil. Truth of the here and now. Saga of global barbarism. Common sense beyond politics. Everything is on collision course. There is a way out of this labyrinth. Let's start. Some people confuse good and evil when they are very easy to distinguish, although sometimes it is not so easy when the devil disguises himself as angel of light. Good is everything that supports the liberation of humankind from suffering as soon as possible, while evil is everything that tries to cause suffering and delay liberation, because they cannot avoid it. But within each side, there are different nuances. The purest are those who consider that the end doesn't justify the means, which would be the white hats. And the most practical ones think the opposite and are called grey hats, but they also respect some rules. On the other hand, the bad guys play with advantage because they cheat and don't respect any rules. Among the evil ones, we must distinguish the Satanists from the Luciferians. The first are the most brutal, and the second are pure narcissist ego worship, but more civilized. Although it may seem surprising, most bad guys do not usually hate light artists who do not hate anyone, but rather admire them for their talent and creativity, but they would like to have them at their service, and even try to copy them, some ideas to justify their iniquitous purposes, as in the case of ecology. But deep down, they consider us poor naive people, dreamers and romantic idealists, while they consider themselves realists, even if reality is changing against them. When reality changes, they will try to hide their dark past and present themselves as champions of freedom because they are chameleon like and accommodating to the wind that blows. But of course, even if the monkey dresses in silk, she stays cute. The bad guy usually presents himself as a defender of noble causes, such as freedom, the rule of law, social justice, and ecology. But his actions give them away because they are not consistent with his words. You will know them by his works, not by his words. The bad guy tries to present the good guy as stale, conservative, dirty, and extremist, but the good guy rejects these false labels. If the good man defends the right to life, he is branded as a liberticide. If he defends the right to freedom, he is called a fascist. If he defends national sovereignty against the globalist elite, he is called old-fashioned. If he defends common sense, he is called crazy, when they are the crazy ones. Confusion. We live in a world of deception and confusion, and most people tend to fall into the trap of making white black and black white. Some people don't have the house well furnished in their brain, because you tell them one thing and they understand the opposite. That is why I turn to the dictionary so often to avoid misunderstandings. The good news is that more and more human beings are starting to think for themselves instead of letting the dumb box called television think for them, and they are realizing the massive deception. In the end, common sense will prevail, which is neither right nor left. But in the meantime, we have to suffer the ignorance and stupidity of the majority, who are disconnected from their own soul if they have one. The problem with democracy, when there is no cheating, which is almost always the case, is not that the majority does not have the right to make decisions, which they do, but that they do not make informed decisions or informed consent because of massive deception, and they make mistakes frequently. The problem with political parties is that they usually fight for their own interests more than for the interest of the people they claim to represent. They sell us a political program that they never fully comply with, and they also sell us a complete package that they do that we cannot decide each point. You can agree 100% without the possibility of, of voting each point. If I have learned anything from this sad third dimensional world, is that there is no such thing as pure good, but rather that all that is offered are evils to a greater or lesser degree, and in the end we are forced to choose the lesser evil with our noses stuffed so as to not to smell it. But the ideal would be not to choose any evil if we can do it. Definitely, I don't feel like I feel like I don't belong to this world because I don't like all the misery I see. And in the end, we become crazy artists or mystical hermits far from the madding crowd and searching for the hidden path of the few wise men in the world who have been. Beyond and more here. Beyond good and evil is an expression that comes from the philosophical work written by Friedrich Nietzsche, an influential German philosopher of the 19th century. It suggests the idea of transcending conventional notions of what is considered good or bad in moral terms. He argues that traditional conceptions of morality are a product of culture and religion, and that we must move beyond those limitations to develop a more authentic and personal morality. He advocates the creation of new values based on the will to power and the affirmation of life that go beyond the limitations imposed by tradition and culture. But he does not advise anyone to become evil, but to follow natural law. News. Space weather. A pair of solar storms could graze the Earth's magnetic field today, Saturday, October 21st. They left the Sun in quick succession on October 17th and 18th, and none of them pointed directly at Earth. However, two indirect hits could be enough to cause a G1 class geomagnetic storm. US military bases attacked in Syria and Iraq. Drone attack against US military base in Iraqi Kurdistan. A US destroyer intercepts missiles and drones launched from Yemen towards Israel. The Houthi attack from Yemen could be directed at the US ship, not Israel. Israel is evacuating the city of Ashkelon, population 150,000. Israel continues bombing Hamas targets in Gaza. Lebanon asks Israel to declare a 48-hour ceasefire. Iran orders a general attack against Israel. Iran detects the vulnerability of the West. Oil. The BBC admits its mistake for speculating about the bombing of a hospital in Gaza. According to Bloomberg, the US urges Israel to delay its ground incursion into Gaza until the hostages are released. Hamas could release some of the captured civilians without demanding that Israel release the Palestinian prisoners in exchange. Egypt hosts a major international summit this Saturday to examine the conflict. Will you be able to live with yourself if you support the war? asks Mike Adams. They threatened to bomb more than 20 hospitals, a war crime according to the UN. According to Josh Eaton, the next stage of the war in the Middle East would be about to begin. The, the stage is now set for a confrontation with surrounding Muslim nations. 4 days, thousands of volunteer fighters have been heading to Israel's borders for an imminent invasion. They come from Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Jordan, Egypt, Libya, Saudi Arabia, and a variety of Middle Eastern countries. In addition to this, Syria is preparing for war from the north. The US conducts a nuclear test in Nevada hours after Russia's decision to revoke the global test ban, Fox News reports. Putin deploys hypersonic ICBM after Biden conducts nuclear weapon test, according to Sorchafal. A Russian combat robot is ready for mass production. Taiwanese military shoot at a tourist boat with 34 people during exercises. War rumors. According to Greg Hunter, everywhere you look in the Middle East, you see signs of a war in the making. It is the most violent world division that has not been seen in a long time. The economy is going to collapse, and that is a mathematical certainty, according to Bill Holter. Debt is off the charts. Interest rates have doubled. Big banks are losing money, and there is no way to stop the slide. According to the Storm Rider, the war would only last a few weeks without direct US involvement, but the Navy would prevent other countries from interfering in the conflict. He believes that Netanyahu could take advantage of the war to become a dictator. He further reports that the special forces are preparing for hostage rescue. He adds that the Israeli attack on Gaza could last a couple of weeks once the green light is given. They have been given a few days to intervene, but after that they must sign peace because there is not enough ammunition to sustain this war. He also believes that Israel cannot win this war and that the conflict would end with the fall of Netanyahu due to the opposition from his military. Turkey has provided weapons to Hamas for the past 2 years, and China supports Iran by providing it with long-range missiles, while the recent alliance of major oil producers could leave the West without gas. Israel withdraws its diplomats from Turkey on Thursday, Middle East Eye reported. By the way, the Taliban are seeking to join the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative. In his opinion, the war in Ukraine has practically ended with the Russian victory, and the operation to provoke the Third World War will fail. There is no money to fight 3 wars against Russia, China, and the Middle East. Russia has captured Kharkiv, Ukraine's second largest city, and is currently heading west and could capture Odessa by midwinter. Turkey has turned against its NATO allies, is moving troops and conducting naval exercises, and is mobilizing 2 million soldiers. Pakistan is supporting Turkey, China is supporting both countries, and Russia is supporting several Middle Eastern countries, including Syria and Palestine. Iran, Syria, Lebanon, and Turkey, backed by China and Russia, have the largest combined weapons arsenals in the world, and the US will not fight Iran in a ground war, as Iranian missiles could destroy naval fleets. Everything is on a coalition course right now. The global war scare event is expected to arrive at the end of 2024, and that is why Donald Trump told them that only he could stop a third world war. Don't panic about the doomsday narrative. Everything will come down in the end, although there will be many small flights and countries taking sides. Everything will be taken up again in a big, massive event, and it is possible that North Korea will give a scare that will go nowhere. Storm Rider adds that Donald Trump was an ally of Elon Musk and that his public distancing from him was a show. The truth is that Trump appointed Musk deputy director of operations of the Space Force. Although it seems that the US cannot fight three wars, the Space Force has an ion weapon much more powerful than nuclear weapons, because it could destroy a city in a few seconds. Russia and Iran know this, which is why this weapon keeps the Middle East under control. The nuclear bomb is a very old technology, and there are much more powerful, sophisticated weapons that are controlled from Cheyenne Mountain. Security measures have been put in place to prevent the nuclear war, but the expected events would lead to the exposure of the dark side. Worldwide vigil. The Storm Rider adds that as the global storm approaches, it is important to remember that the Great Awakening that truly began in 2012 when the Internet shaped the consciousness of human beings to awaken. Of course, the Internet has two sides, one bad and one good. I speak here of the movement of good and light. Internet is important for humankind as it provides information. It was deliberately launched in all regions of the world to bring about the Great Awakening. A powerful global consciousness first grew when humans shared information in fractions of a second. People found and shared important information. Their awareness grew rapidly, and with the exposure of the darkest secrets, the truth movement began. The White Hat's plan was always to use the Internet to expose the cabal. It had long been known that the Internet would spark an awakening among the sleepers and a cultural revolution around the world. The Great Awakening is connected to a conscious world, which is in turn is connected to the Holy Spirit, which is connected to molecular structures that can be reorganized by faith, hope, love, and grace. Europe. Shipments of artillery ammunition to Ukraine leave Spain's arsenal almost empty of projectiles. Two new fronts with rain and wind will pass through Spain this weekend. France is on high alert for possible attacks. France will send a humanitarian aid flight for the Palestinians. The Belgian Minister of Justice resigns upon learning that Belgium refused to extradite the Tunisian who attacked on Monday. Banks are closing hundreds of branches and laying off thousands of workers, according to Michael Snyder. Americas. Petro doubts that the West is democratic because of its position on Palestine. The Vice President of Bolivia demands a global agreement for the freedom of Palestine. The draft completely evaporates the water of Popo, the second largest lake in Bolivia. Brazil seeks to position itself as a mediator of the conflict despite the US veto. Brazil authorizes for the first time a US military exercise in the Amazon. Lula partially vetoes the bill on the demarcation of indigenous lands. Argentina against the Vatican. Proposal by an advisor to candidate Milei to break relations with the Vatican. Argentina goes to the polls on Sunday with great uncertainty. Javier Milei closed his presidential campaign with a triumphalist tone. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.